We are coming in for one of the most important 24 hours for the S&P 500, for silver, for gold, for the financial markets right now. We have had a few candles turn green because Trump has just put out a massive statement. We're going to be talking about that and if it's enough to actually reverse the course of what's been happening around the world. So if you guys remember, on the weekend, we had a update just recently. The financial markets were one of the worst days we've seen in a serious amount of time for the S&P 500, for gold, for silver. Everything started to go down. And right now, today, this is the critical period. Trump has to reverse this. He has to come up with some magic. And we do have signs of what his magical tweets and statements are going to be. But the big question is it enough? Is it enough? Do people believe it? We're going to be talking about it right now in this video. So if you guys haven't been aware of the news, this is actually broken moments ago. And Trump has come out and he has said that the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will have no choice but to accept a deal with Iran because he calls the shots. That is what Trump is saying. He's went on to say, I call the shots. I call all the shots. He doesn't call the shots. Trump said today's missile strikes by Iran will not impact the deal. Trump said he believes the deal is going on. Trump said that Iran strikes had not changed his desire to conclude US-Iran negotiations, and oil prices are trading higher. So this is the statement. These are the statements coming out of Trump. This is what's reversing the S&P 500. This is what's putting a couple of green bars into silver, into gold. You can see right here a little bit of hot volatility coming in for silver right there. And is it going to be enough? Let's talk about it, because the Iranians have actually escalated things as well. So they haven't really believed what Trump has been saying. So remember, at the end of the day, this is all words, right? It could be almost like your wrestling scripts. So if you're a fan of the WWE, WWF, is this all just, fake wrestling scripts and you have to more analyze the real actions and whether what's really happening? It could be the case, but in the background, because Iran is so fatigued of empty words, what they have done is they have sent some warning missiles to Israel, actually. So they actually sent some ballistic missiles recently. Now, these weren't actually intended to cause a huge amount of damage. These were more warning shots. So after these warning shots were sent, that's when Trump, my understanding, came out with all these statements trying to neutralize the situation and, potentially tell people what they want to hear. So that's what's come out of the Iranians, and they've also backed it up with their words. So one thing we have seen is, look, the Iranians are consistent with their words to some degree and their actions. And MB Ghalibaf says right here, they are neither committed to a ceasefire nor believe in dialogue. And by demonstrating through the naval blockade and violation of agreements regarding Lebanon, that they only understand the language of power. The naval blockade against the Iranian nation and America's green light today to the Zionist regime turn American and regime bases and assets in the region into legitimate targets. The hand of our armed forces is open as always. So right there, that is the moment this thing could go back to a fully fledged war. So this next 24 hours is going to be critical for the financial markets. And we're going to see what actually happens. Is there still going to be big attacks in Lebanon? Is that going to actually hold up? Or is it not going to hold up, right? How long will the real ceasefire break out for? Or are missiles just going to start to go on again and again and again, right? So one thing we do know about the financial markets, and this is probably one of the most important things to know, is this conflict, the longer this drags on, remember, the whole world is basically hostage to this thing. So even if you don't live in the Middle East, or even if you're not even like American or Iranian or, live in Israel, it doesn't matter. This whole thing, because it's connected to global supply chains that are getting massively disrupted, you're caught up in this, right? So if you own silver, gold, S&P 500, a lot of this has to do with the Iran conflict at the moment, right? So the good news is, the silver lining is, even though there's been a lot of fear, there's been a lot of fear in the markets on Friday, remember, because this market is so suppressed right now, and even if you have a look at the silver price, there's obviously a huge amount of suppression, a massive discount to silver's all-time high. So if we actually zoom out for silver, for example, this got up to $120. So it's nearly 50% down off its all-time high. So just understand the amount of suppression that is happening with silver and with gold as well. So once this thing does actually get resolved. And I think the only way that this is really going to get resolved is if there is so much international pressure to get this thing sorted out, right? So there's going to have to be a lot of external pressure, whether that gets organized and put on all the parties to get this thing sorted out. That's going to be the thing that really, plays a role. And also Trump himself. So Trump has all the power. And how is he going to exercise that power, right? And I think it's important that the actions do speak louder than the words. So what is Trump actually going to do? But the good news is once this thing, does get sorted out, it's going to be exciting, because one thing we do know, and if you've been a subscriber of this channel, there's lots of money printing, right? 39 trillion national debt. And you can see the proof behind me. So 39.2 trillion right here. And that's going to be climbing. So it's going to go to 40 trillion. And all these Western countries, which are not even safe spaces anymore, they're kind of slowly going down. But one thing that is true, there's a lot of money printing. A lot of that money printing goes into both the stock market, but also that's where your assets such as gold, silver, copper, they play an important role, right? Because these are harder assets than, say, empty fiat money that gets printed out by politicians and central bankers, right? And at the same time, what else has been interesting is that there's been so much hot money in the economy, not the economy, I should say, the stock market, that the Koreans have actually had to halt their stock market today because it went down like a meme coin, down 8.4% at open. So what is up with that? And you guys are also aware that, in the next coming few weeks, we're going to have some of the biggest IPOs in history for the US stock market. And the first one is going to be this SpaceX, right? So high risk, high reward, all that important stuff, massive valuation, and it is going to retail people as well. So as always, look, as I've said before in the market, you guys know, we know crypto very well on this channel. And one risk is sometimes when retail go in for these big IPOs and they don't hold up, you can incur some big losses. So as always, not financial advice, but it's just highly risky stuff. And we'll see whether these PE ratios and these valuations hold up after, it goes into IPO, right? So that's going to be happening soon. IPO for SpaceX, you got Anthropic coming up as well. And there's a lot of things happening in the US financial markets. And also at the same time, which is exciting news, Bitcoin is starting to slightly recover. So Bitcoin has been the canary in the coal mine for the financial markets to some degree. And just recently, you guys can see this monstrous drop that happened on the Bitcoin price. It went from 125,000 all the way down to actually $58,000, $59,000. But just within the last couple of moments, based off Trump's announcements that we just discussed, guys, it's starting to rise back up again. So look, the most important thing to watch out for is Trump, where the missiles are going, where the drones are going. That is going to determine, where the gains come in for gold, silver, and copper and things like that. But I have to say, look, the silver lining is, no pun intended, the suppression is good because once it does get it sorted out, and it needs to get sorted out, this conflict, that's when things are going to get very, very exciting once again. And that is your big update for today. So if you guys got value out of it, like the video, appreciate you being here, and I'll see you in the next one.